Excellent. Yay. Okay. Wow. So everybody, we are here with Keda. Keda and I met through beautiful circumstances, but ultimately, Keda was someone who instantly, within herself and her work, made me feel so held that I cried the first time we talked, like the first time we linked up. And I am just like thrilled inside to have this conversation. So welcome, Keda.
Thank
Hello.
you.
Yay.
Thank you
So
for having me.
you're welcome. So Keda runs so many beautiful programs and organizations. One of them being True2Soul, which is where I linked in with you at first, Keda.
Yes.
And it's a space. True2Soul is a inclusive space for anybody that is dealing with sexual trauma. And
Yes.
the energy held within True2Soul is so big, bold, beautiful, and so encompassing and so warming. So it's where there's discrete workshops, there's professional programs for transformative healing for women who are dealing with anything from sexual trauma recovery. And so, Keda, is there anything within True2Soul that you wish to elaborate on, or even within your work that you wish to share with people before we step into the conversation about, how we linked up and how we're going to hopefully hold space for others here?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. When it comes to program development, which is my niche, focusing on trauma recovery and even more focused on sexual trauma recovery, it's something that I come to as a survivor of my own complex traumas that began in childhood, in toddlerhood, to be
Right.
specific. And so growing up, I walked through different points in my life where I realized, okay, I don't have access to what I need to heal. When I finally chose
Mm-hmm.
to pursue a healing journey, I found misogyny, I found racism, I found ineptitude,
Mm-hmm.
lack of access, lack of existence of the services that I needed as a survivor. And that's what really called in me this need to fill
Mm-hmm.
the gap, to fill that gap. And particularly for BIPOC and Indigenous women,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually to expand out to all who identify as women who are trauma survivors. Anything from harassment to rape and intimate partner violence is part of that picture. So when I created True2Soul and the programs that we create there and develop there, it's really creating a safe, inclusive, non-judgmental sanctuary for
Mm-hmm.
people to come. And so these programs, this part of the program is anonymized, so people can come and not fear that they have to disclose or that their life can be uprooted professionally or personally. It's virtual, 100% virtual. So people who may be in wherever it may be, they can't leave their home for whatever reason, they could access it. And it's peer to peer. So we have
Mm-hmm.
people coming in who are experts from around the world, they're international service providers, but the 15 people who are in the room who we won't see each other's faces,
Mm-hmm.
um, they are all people who have their own journeys that they've walked. And so there's a community that's being created, that has been created over the years, of people who are willing to share, and really seeking to have people who just want to listen, not
Mm-hmm.
give them answers, but just share and listen.
Which is truly exactly what I felt when I looked at your site, when I looked into who you were, and then when I linked in with you in person. Like the word sanctuary, when you were describing that right now, my whole body went, that's exactly what I felt I walked into, was a sanctuary and a safe space. And I think the really great thing too, that it's so funny for me having all of these feelings when I actually haven't even gone through any of your like workshops or programs, but like just the way you exude that and the way your work exudes that, it blows my mind. It's so powerful. So even the fact that you said, like we're not here to necessarily, correct me if I'm wrong, but like provide answers, it's sort of more to be heard. And that's the part that I almost felt was lacking from my experience. And what I find a lot of people feels as well is this, where is my space to exist? Where is the space to feel what I'm feeling? And where is the space to almost not necessarily relate, because everyone's experiences are different, even within a similar sort of categorization, but at the same time be like, oh my gosh, for me, this was the first time connecting with you and having within my own internal sort of healing, where I don't know what it was, but where I went, I have sexual trauma. And I went, oh my gosh. And I think that's why I cried, was
Mm,
because of course I knew I had sexual trauma and I was dealing with it. But for me to sit with myself and be held in a space where I can be heard and held, being like, I have sexual trauma.
yeah.
And it was just like, boosh, like, oh my gosh. And dealing with it being online sexual assault or online sexual violation or anything, I think for myself, what I'm learning is that it is, I mean, again, everything is different, but it is just as a violating or effective on your soul as it is, because I've also had in-person sexual violations as well. And I think that there was a lack of connection between the traumas that I've experienced from it. And it almost felt like it was a mental trauma that I had to be okay with, like saying like, you have sexual trauma from something that's online. Like it's not even like it's you, but it's online. It almost felt like disconnected. So I felt connected from it to
Mhm.
it for the first time in your arms, basically, So oh, like, yeah. And just coming to this realization, even in the last few weeks, months, has been really life changing and helped propel me forward in how I can help others, which is
Mm,
blowing my mind as well. So,
wow.
ah,
Thank
mhm.
you so much, Rebecca. Like it's
Mhm.
um I'm speechless, which is not usual. Like I usually have something ready to say, but um for
Mhm.
me hearing that it moves me almost to tears. And you always think, okay, there's no more room in my heart for that magnitude of feeling, or
Mhm.
there's no more room in my heart to be broken again. And each time something happens in our lives, we learn that that's not the truth. That
Mhm.
as long as we have breath in our body, there's opportunity for either one of those and so much more. And
Mhm.
so hearing you speak, I've heard people over the years, I've experienced it myself, just this magical thing that happens when we just can feel seen, heard, and valued. Nothing more than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
some kind of scientifically backed process that's guaranteeing me
Mhm.
150% success.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that because, gimmicks come, gimmicks go. Many of us have been through the ringer with different therapists, and not speaking ill of therapists because
Mhm.
therapists are part of our program. What I'm saying is that the system that's built around it, telling us that our healing is to be found only in a pill or only in some one modality of treatment,
Yeah.
is where I think we miss the target. We miss the point.
Mhm.
Um, each of us were so uniquely constructed, so uniquely expressed
Mhm.
and expressing. And our journey, like you said earlier, is also so unique. The
Mhm.
composition of it, you
Mhm.
know, what were my experiences growing up in my family? What were the narratives? What was my environmental situation like, socioeconomic? Like the intersectionality is quite profound.
Mhm.
And so, where is there a button for that? Like, where is there one pill for that? There
Yeah.
is, there isn't.
Yeah.
What there is an opportunity to create a safe space
Mhm.
that allows people who, yeah, maybe done a lot of work in an area,
Mhm.
maybe trained in an area, maybe have walked through some life experiences that they're willing to share, that is willing to speak out loud about that and let the chips drop where they may.
Mhm.
Each person in this space, um, what was important for me, and I built it based on what I needed that I didn't get. That
Mhm.
was my impetus.
Mhm.
And so I thought I'd love to be in a space where someone's willing to share and I could just take what I need,
Mhm.
take what works for me and leave the rest. I don't
Right.
want to be convinced about anything. I don't
Yeah.
want to be told
Yeah.
what symbolism means when I innately know, I'm just blocked.
Yes.
I want someone to reflect back to me
Mhm.
what I'm saying or what I'm presenting in a way that's non-judgmental, that is, not biased
Mhm.
in any way. I've been through those types of adversities, sitting in front of, someone who's meant to be my therapist, but have has filters that they can't see beyond or are completely unaware of.
Mhm.
Whether it's based on race or gender or, socioeconomic class. It's something that really irked me. Um, that when we go searching for this type of thing, it's because we've been harmed.
Mhm.
And to be vulnerable and then be reharmed,
Mhm.
that's an atrocity. It's
Oof.
horrible. It's horrible,
And
right?
it happens, I feel quite, it happens a lot. It happens, I feel, this is purely based on my experience and the experiences around me from talking with people, is that it happens more than not. It happens, if not, I can't, every single experience I have talked to, I'm trying not to say this in terms of like an extreme, but every single person I have talked to has um touched on almost like the being re-traumatized from trying to seek help, even, and made to feel even more in their panic or their isolation or confusion. And
Mm.
um it's I look at us both being speechless during this. Like I the urgency I feel around that safety for all humans too, and the fact that if we hold that safety for all humans, there's, the the theory is that there's going to be less pain, less hurt, and it will create a healthier environment. These are theories for myself based on, either my existentialism or my readings or what have you. But I really truly feel that in holding space for people, especially for women or people of color, anybody or anyone who has been isolated or like just treated awfully, is, having that space for all of us, and educating us on that safety. It will help everybody too, and on the immediacy of, even what we're talking about. Well, we need to hold the people that have also been harmed right now. Like, hold on a second here, like,
Yeah,
so, uh,
yeah. That's why I admire what you're doing so much
mm,
because I've been at this for a while, a couple of decades, and it's always been so highly stigmatized.
mhm.
To the extent where
Yeah.
I used what I said I was doing to be
Mm.
trauma recovery in general, resiliency
Mm.
development, because I love positive
Wow.
speak, and
Wow.
DEI, which used to be called multiculturalism. But
Mhm.
as soon as I would drill down to sexual trauma, first of all, I can tell um, how resonant it is with people, either
Yeah.
in body language or in the eyes or even in the stillness. There
Mm.
are all kinds of responses that happen when I know someone knows. They
Mhm.
understand either from personal experience or proximity. But there's always been a resistance to talking about that out loud. And
Ah,
it's so insidious. And
mhm.
that's how it's perpetuated. That's how the legacy continues.
Mhm.
People want to ensconce it in silence,
Yes.
that just ignoring it will make us look away from the fact that there are segments of our society that literally are predatory,
Oof. Yeah.
um, so predatory,
Yeah.
that aren't even touched by our justice system.
Mhm.
Um, within families, the secrets that are held because people
Mm.
don't want to talk about something it's truly ugly, it's
Mhm.
truly painful.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really about transmuting the pain,
Mm.
not about avoiding it, because that's how we're socialized. We avoid the pain, we avoid discomfort. And what that translates into is a lot of pus sitting in the gut
Yep.
and making us sick,
Yep.
and as individuals and society, and then we just put band-aids on it. It's like, oh, there's
Yeah.
a little deep pinch over there. Let's put a band-aid.
Yeah.
It'll come off,
Absolutely.
but we'll put another one on. And
Yes.
we're not getting to the core. And so
Mhm.
I'm just I feel like that's what I've been fashioned for. I've
Mhm.
been fashioned to not be cowed by the pain and discomfort. And therefore, I'm willing to go to the core. I'm willing to get there and sit there and be there,
Yeah.
and not have it twist me into something that I'm not. And it took a lot of work to
Yeah.
get here.
It's so true, and so, I'm thinking of the toxicity that can sit within ourselves if we
Mm,
with the avoidance or other possible coping mechanisms or habits that we've learned from society. And the thing that I'm constantly in a state of witnessing, but also understanding, I think, because I'm relearning how to enter into a lot of aspects of my life recently. Um, and so I'm like looking at a lot of people and understanding and seeing the avoidance and how much pain it causes, and yet it creates a lot of also unhealthy habits on the exterior. And the exterior is also, as you said, sitting on the inside, like it's an explosion of toxicity that is there for that you're walking into. Sorry, I'm trying to mind my language here around this. And yet it just, if you're really not transmuting, like you're saying, this pain and the healing that you need to work through, I don't love using the term need, pardon me, I must be working through something here, but
mm,
it's ultimately like, yes, that transmutation of that pain and energy into your exuberance, your power, and also your pain, more pain, if that's what happens when you transmute one pain to another pain, that's also possible. But just allowing yourself to really sit with it, love it, move with it, is where the healing truly can start from and stem from.
mm,
And a lot of my experience lately has just been, I don't know if it's based on where I am in the world, um, the level of the exterior pain that I'm witnessing in the habits, the external habits that people have. I'm really like, I just want to hug you. There's so many people that I just want to hug. And I see from my journey too how um the societal impacts of that and the justification almost and the acceptance of that,
mm,
is something that also led to everything that's going on. Like there's so many things that go on in one experience. Like for me, it's having the porn hub company that's up, and all the other porn websites. Like there's an amalgamation of this justification and this fear of everything that just creates almost more, I'm using the term toxicity, but I know it's more than that. And something else I wanted to touch on too was the idea of the notion of, as soon as you term it sexual trauma, there's some sort of either like pushback or something, and also like a gripping need for people to be heard and be like, oh my gosh, please tell me more. For myself, I've been speaking about this for a while, that as soon as I termed myself the unintentional porn star and started sharing my story, oh my Lanta, was I like boosh, like so many people were like, I cannot with this. Like
wow,
I was unfollowed. It was just like, what are you doing? And I understand the complexities behind it and people's feelings
yeah,
around it.
yes,
And yet I was like, well, no, this matters. And
yeah,
and it's not even about me. This matters. And it's the uncomfortability society can hold around sex and sexuality and stuff, where yeah, it gets stigmatized and then it gets altered and then it gets shamed and then it gets this and then it turns into something that's negative and toxic. And you're like, hold on a second here. If we hold space for all the complexities around sex and sexuality and traumas, is where the healing and the expansion comes from. And yes, and we're not, so I'm on this whole tangent, we're not seeing that in the world. It's almost the opposite is happening in other areas of the world, where it's like getting shunned more and you're like, oh, like,
yes.
oh. Oh,
Oh my
wow.
gosh, it's so
Went on
true.
so many tangents there.
Oh, true. I mean, the irony is that people are more than willing to see misogynistic displays of
Oh,
masculinity in, on screen, in entertainment, on YouTube. They're more like they get millions of
oh.
views. And, people are like, oh, they're okay with it.
Mhm.
But you talk about something as fundamentally important as the exploitation,
Mhm.
um, sexual exploitation, sexual traumatization of our women, people who identify as women, our girls, and people are like, oh, well, that's a little private. That's a little like, do you really want to
Right?
do that? Isn't it like a psychiatrist that can be seen? Why is that out?
Right.
Can you keep that behind the doors? It's like, hello.
Oh,
You know what? I became unapologetic about this, about um I would say, oh, I don't know, maybe it's going on 10 years, because even though I've been working in the industry, my momentum, my motivation was it largely private. I remember the night finishing a night shift, an evening shift, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me see. Yeah, it was an evening shift because the house was sleeping. I got home and I had prepared, I don't know how long it took me, weeks, this thing I was going to post on some random blog site
mhm,
somewhere. I don't remember what it was. It was there that I was saying I'm a survivor of sexual trauma. It would be the first time ever publicly. And different things moved me to that position. One of the main things that made me make that choice was that I couldn't move in the work that I want to do and keep doing it, not being more open
mhm,
about my why. And it's
mhm,
not to say that everyone has to do that, because I don't
mhm,
believe that
mhm,
everyone's path
mhm,
is the same. I
mhm.
don't believe everyone has to disclose. I don't believe that everyone has to say, resiliency and I'm now more powerful
Yeah.
because
No,
um
that can be traumatizing for some and empowering for others. Totally.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
resiliency also has an influence in its definition that I don't care for, which we could talk about,
Mhm,
later
mhm,
on or another time. But when I was sitting there about to press the enter button and having cold sweat, like I was sweating, I was not hot.
Ooh.
And, just looking at that button and replaying in my
Mhm,
mind, like I think sometimes people may not know, people who are not trauma survivors,
mhm,
of any stripe, may not know that divulging,
mhm,
getting over the shame, the guilt, the secrecy, the fear is almost like fear of death.
mm,
It's so extreme. It's a
mhm.
terror. And so I ended up pressing that enter button. It probably took me a couple hours. I was really working hard
Like
at it.
buckets, you have buckets around you. You're like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Which are close first. And I pressed it, and like in the end, the seconds before I pressed it, I was like, I don't give a,
Mhm.
I don't know. Are we
You
allowed to
can
cuss?
swear. Oh my gosh,
Okay.
swear. Yeah, yeah.
I really don't give a fuck anymore. I'm like, I was gonna read this. It
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I
Mm,
just talk to myself, move myself. I say that it's that night that I work towards it, but it really was years in the making. And then of course, I don't think I got any sleep. And I probably checked like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to see, like, did anybody look at this? And people were looking at it. It wasn't a huge onslaught, but I was surprised to see what people were saying.
mm,
They were essentially saying Me Too before Me Too began. They were just saying they understood. And that was the beginning of me being out. It made me feel more honest about the work that I was doing.
mm,
It's just I feel that leading can't be in talking only.
mm,
And I really truly believe that I'm fashioned for this work. It's my purpose on this planet. I'm here to contribute to transmutation of pain. And the specific area that I specialize in, because of the life that I've grown into, since babyhood, um, it gives me a special focus on sexual trauma.
mm,
Um, the thing about trauma is that the basis of them all is quite similar,
mm,
even though the journeys are very different. The five W's and H different, but the base, how it affects a person,
mhm,
um, you know, what causes a person to inflict trauma.
mm, mhm,
Oftentimes, when we break it down to its foundation, there's such commonality, um, but there's also humanity below there.
mhm,
If we allow ourselves, to go through the healing process far enough to be able to see that. I've chosen to over my lifetime, and I'm not saying that that's where we need to get to. We hear stories of people forgiving, you know, a person who has traumatized them, or traumatized someone that they love, and they forgive them. And I'm not speaking ill of that. I think that can be quite beautiful. But I'm not saying that that's what people need to do in order to get peace. I feel like a lot of times we're so focused on forgiving someone else and fixing this and
External.
brace for that. Not realizing it's totally inside. It's an inside job, because the commonality in all those traumas is that we lose our trust, we lose our confidence, we lose our self-worthiness, we lose a lot as survivors. And society makes us feel like that's the way it should be, even without intending to. That's what society does. It kind of like
That made
validates
me
that.
sweaty. Yeah.
Right?
Sweaty.
Right?
Yes.
And then I feel like healing is our return to the understanding that none of that is true. It's not ours to bear shame or guilt or, you know, losing a sense of worthiness or even trust, you know, trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition again, our guidance system again, having faith in ourselves, that forgiving ourselves. It seems odd, and intellectually people try to talk about it, but it's not an intellectual thing. The forgiveness is, we almost take on the responsibility of the betrayal and the violation and the exploitation, and really beat ourselves up. Even whether we're a child or adult, it doesn't matter. And so it contributes to so much lashing out, so much, you know, disallowing of living our lives, of interacting with others, you know, interfacing in an intimate way, the lack of trust of ourselves, faith in ourselves, like understanding that our systems are still intact, that we can still discern, that it's not our fault. That's a process. And when we choose to engage in that, then everything else becomes a piece of cake, to be honest. It's not perfect, but it does start from inside of us, because we can't do for others what we can't do for ourselves. We can pretend, but we can't actually do it. It's not sustainable. It has no longevity.
Oof. I literally this morning had like a conversation with myself, being like, and I'm also doing work within my spirituality. And I just had this moment with myself where I could almost cry. I had so much joy because I was like, we have safety in self again. And like, that is so big. That is so beautiful. And I literally had this feeling of like, I can do this, you know, like I can trust again. I can, because I trust myself, I can connect with people again in a deep way, because I connect deeply with myself. And no matter what happens, you know, there's even within this feeling within myself, you know, the external world is still there to challenge you at times, or provide you with confirmation or what have you. But there have been some challenges in the last few weeks where I've really had to say, I'm so sorry. I can't enter into this conversation any further. I'm, you know, it's not feeling safe for me. And I look at that and I go, holy crap, like, girl, like, what did you just do? Like, that's amazing, you know, and you entered in with love. Like,
Yeah.
what, you know, like it's been so magical. And
Oh,
it's
gosh.
so, the feeling of what you're talking about for me is so true, because for myself, I don't know what happened still. I don't know how my tape got online. I didn't
Oh,
do
okay.
it, or, you know, or someone stole my hard drive, or I have theories in my mind. And I was searching, I was like, how am I going to heal? You know, how am I going to do this when I can't blame someone, when I can't look at someone and go, you hurt me, even though I can actually, well, I totally can. Yep, we can still do that. But sorry, my point, my point is, is that I was searching for so long for that external source of healing.
Yeah.
And as much as that is so valuable and so great, it's something I had to sit with myself and be like, you may never have the answer, girl.
Yeah.
So how are you going to do this?
Yeah.
And in all of the lessons and learning in time is the realization of I have to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even matter. Like, okay, if anyone's listening, because I know sometimes even they're still listening to my stuff too. So like,
Mm.
I would love to talk. Like,
Oh yeah.
let's talk.
Oh
And like, I might step into some circumstances to kind of make that happen. But anyways, like bring it in, like, do I need it? No, like
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't need it anymore. And that
Mhm.
makes me feel free. And that makes me feel um myself again. Like I would say in the last, I can't even, it's obviously it's always an amalgamation of years of work and everything, but I'm not kidding you. In the last week is these like immense moments of me. And I don't even know what that means because I'm a new person, right? Like we can't go back.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel connected to
Mm.
self is what maybe is what's happening and to this new version of myself and to my histories and past and my current and future, whatever. I feel connected. And
Yes.
in the healing journey, this has been one of the most expansive and explosive in a good way, like fireworks moments for myself in healing and being able to be like, oh wow, I think I feel safe.
Oh my God.
Oh, actually, well, I feel safe with self. I just literally thought of being safe in the outside world. I was like, oh, we're stepping there, we're getting there. Start with themselves. But anyways, yes.
Oh my gosh, I know that so well. Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Amazing. It's such a
Well,
thing.
I mean, so I would love to touch on I guess I have in my, in my notes and my research within you and your site and everything is you're revolutionizing how the world sees and responds to survivors. And so within your work of both connecting with victims and healers and healing people healing, I would love to share and connect on things that you're doing within your work that also involves like having the world see it in a different way. Like I would love to, even for myself, to know as
Mhm.
I expand into my journey of sharing my story and everything, there's a part of me that always goes, well, how? And it's like, I know I don't need to really worry about that. I just need to be honest with myself and step in authentically every moment. And yet you've been doing this for so long, like in terms of having the world see it, like, how do you feel within your work, you're stepping in with that or within your personal self? Yeah, I'd love to almost touch on that if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. I passionately believe and know that being is how we learn and how we teach.
Mm,
Teaching is actually transforming. There are many things that are transforming now. We're in a very transitional stage on the planet in all areas, and education teaching is one of those areas as well. Storytelling, being the thing, um, sharing, that's how people absorb now. And so part of the revolutionizing survivorship is me practicing what it is that I'm talking about, which was me pressing that enter button so many years ago. It's me living my life out loud. I'm choosing to do that
mhm,
um, incrementally more and more and more.
mm,
Not for exhibitionism. It's not for sensationalizing. Trauma porn is not a thing for me, not interested. I just, I feel like we all know on some level what is real.
mhm,
And so if I'm talking about empowerment, if I'm talking about all those things around guilt and shame are fallacies, they're illusions,
mhm,
they're lies that we choose to believe
mhm,
um, and then live by. If I'm talking about that, what am I actually doing in my life? to exemplify that.
Mhm.
If I'm saying that limits are what we choose for, if we fight for them, we get to keep them. What am I doing to exemplify that?
Mm.
So, survivorship, revolutionizing it for me is about showing that, yeah, I'm a Renaissance woman, and whatever I want to do, I do.
Mhm.
Whatever I want, I
Mm.
get.
Mm.
It's just a matter of me choosing to know that to be the truth. And
Mhm.
everything else is just a fallacy. Now, it's not delusion. It's not like, oh, I am the queen of Sheba. And I'm more saying, like, it's like a left and right brain integration, meaning that I allow my creativity to be expansive. And then I allow the left brain functions that are very healthy because I did come out of policing after all. I have some structure to me. So I allow the hows
Mhm.
of how to get things done in this world that has monetary exchange, in this world that, has a regard for certain structures in place, I have those come together. So what I envision, I utilize that other side of me to discover how I can manifest that vision in this world. And I do it out loud. I try not to hide my flops, my errors, the struggles, the pain, because at one point I did. I was that numbed out, smiley faced young woman that everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's doing so well. She's got the
Mm.
job and she's
Mhm.
got this, she's got,
Mhm.
the partner and like community act. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. And I kept that up for a long time because that's what I perceived it had to be. I thought, and that's the way that, society has been structured, is that you got to be perfect before people will
Mhm.
listen to you. But then I came to
Mhm.
a point where I realized I was numbed out. I was doing the things, but I wasn't remembering stuff. People were like, don't you remember saying this? That was such a profound, wonderful thing you said, or you did this.
Totally. Oh
Kudos. I'd be like,
gosh. I feel the same way so much. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
right? Coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Like from childhood, I compartmentalized. I
Yep.
would talk about it even, but
Mhm.
didn't apply it to myself until I was confronted with the fact that I was not aware of different chunks of my life. I was not present there. I pulled my presence away as part of a coping mechanism that was no longer serving me well. It helped me survive childhood.
Mhm.
There are a number of things that helped me survive.
Mhm.
And the other thing about when people talk about being survivors, people think all of a sudden that your entire life experience is now one homogenous mess of pain. It's like, no, my childhood had joy in it. My
Totally.
childhood had pain in it. It had sadness,
Totally.
it
Yeah.
had ecstasy, it had
Yeah.
everything in there.
Yeah.
But for me to survive what was not normal,
Mm.
I pulled my presence away. And
Mm.
so I got to a point where I became aware that I was with child. I was aware from the night of conception.
Mm.
People who may choose not to believe that, but I'm an intuitive. I
I
come from
love
a
that. Yes. Yeah.
history of intuitives. And so that night it came to me in my dreams, and I knew I was pregnant. And so like I was off of anything that had anything to do with harming a child in
Mm.
my womb for 3 months without even having any definitive
Wow.
nothing. I
Wow.
just knew.
Wow.
And I wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant. That's the thing. I was actually told by
Wow.
the doctors that I was not
Wow.
going to be able to have a baby. So 3 months in, I did the test and it was positive, and
Mm.
I was positive that it would be positive. And that during that time is when I realized that I couldn't go through life being numb. I couldn't do
Mm.
it. I
Mhm.
could not just keep my unresolved traumas in a box, because that means that's what I'm gifting my child. And that's the legacy that I'm perpetuating. So I had to choose to open those packets.
Mhm.
And Rebecca, it was painful.
Mm.
Opening things that you stash away into the recesses of your mind
Mm.
and your heart so it can't cause you pain is a painful process. And that's why I understand when
Mm.
people resonate with this work but say, no, I can't, I don't want to.
Yeah.
um yeah, good luck with that. I get it, I get it.
Yeah.
And not everyone makes that choice. Our journeys are different for, across the board.
Mhm.
going through that process of real healing, deep
Mm.
digging, and then training as a holistic practitioner, which
Mhm.
allows you to get behind the curtain and call bullshit on yourself. It's
Mhm.
it's like in the gym when you're like you're pushing the weight and maybe the right arm's stronger, so you're like really right arm's doing more work on the chest press, and this is where all the check and balances,
Mhm.
they all are there right in front of you. You can't, when you're training as a practitioner or as a therapist or as a counselor, you can't pretend that you don't know, because now you know. And
Mhm.
so I put myself through those paces. And that's what brought me to the point of that pressing that enter button, because I finally got to the point where doing what I had done and knowing what I knew, I could choose to just keep that glass wall between me and the people that I want to exemplify, um, what it looks like to transmute pain,
Yep.
or and then not be truly believed. People will be attracted, but then they be kind of knocking on the glass wall
Right.
saying,
Mhm.
I sense
Mhm.
something, but I can't really touch it. So I'm
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So me pressing that enter button was me also
Wow.
swearing to just dismantle that glass wall bit by bit. It's not a total shatter all at once.
Mhm.
It's a dismantling, and it's inherent. What's inherent in that is a continual, peeling away each layer of the onion.
Yeah.
Things come up, they return in different ways. It's not ever the exact same. Some of us sometimes
Mm.
will go through stuff and think, oh, did I deal with that? I
Yeah.
thought I did that. Why am
Yeah.
I going through this again?
Yeah. It's like,
But
well, there
it's
was
an
another layer
onion.
to it, so
Right, right.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like next layer, deeper. Good job, good job. Okay, you're ready. You can deal with this. And so for the revolutionizing of survivorship, for me, it's to show that this can be done in an empowered way. Survivorship is not just cry, woe is me, I'm so small. But there are moments that I feel that way, that
Yeah.
I feel so small, so raw, and so vulnerable. I
Mm.
don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want anyone to talk to me. I
Mhm.
just want to be in my space alone with myself. And there are other times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I just realized something. I want
Yeah.
everybody to know this. It's like so amazing. I feel like I've just healed some massive part of myself. Survivorship is an ebb and flow. It's
Mhm.
a textured experience. It's a powerful experience. It's one that is not an either or, black or white. It's lusciously complex.
Yes.
It's tremendously, interesting and painful and joyful and more common than we admit. Over 70% of our human species has been traumatized
Oh.
in one or more of 17 different ways.
Oh. Wow.
That's over 5 trillion, close to 6.
Oh.
And so, with all of that walking around on two legs, I wonder why we've got broken systems. I wonder why we've got like
Mm.
perpetuation of trauma. It's cyclical. And so for me, the revolutionizing of it is having people look up for me and realize, hey,
Yeah.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm totally not alone. And it doesn't matter what shape we're dressed in,
Wow.
male, female, child, or adult. But I am one person,
Mhm.
and my shape is a Black woman who's
Mhm.
lived the life that I have lived. So that's where I'm starting. And
Mm.
then my intention is to expand and reach out to hands to people like yourself who are focused on the same thing out loud, so that we can really magnify this message and
Wow.
revolutionize survivorship, so that we all realize we're being cracked open.
Mm.
We're being cracked open or being broken whole, which is the name of the other organization that you were alluding to. That's my
Mhm.
media group. And that's where I really amplify these messages,
Wait,
is
wait,
through,
wait. Mediumship, right?
pardon?
Did you say
Media, media, the screen,
oh,
film and,
media. Oh my gosh. I was like, wait, what?
but what you just mentioned is also true, but that's a total, like, I don't want to, you guys will be
Did
like,
that
what?
for myself.
It's
So
like, but yeah, that's a whole different topic. But
got you.
yeah, that's one that we can have for sure. So yeah, we could talk about that. But yeah, so when it
For
comes to
media, yes,
survivorship,
yeah.
yeah, revolutionizing it, it's about living my life out loud,
Mm.
doing my work for people to see, amplifying it as loudly as I can, so that we can create community and peer to peer support and healing and transformation, and make this paradigm shift happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, it's really truly, it sounds, the revolutionizing is you being you know, and you honoring every part of your experience of who you are, your desires to help, your desires to heal yourself and others. And that's revolutionary. And for anyone that's listening, is like something I'm, you know, I'm writing books and I'm talking about these things, is like, for anyone listening, like, you are enough, you know, you are revolutionary. You, in your healing, in everything you've experienced, the pain, the hardships, the joys, the bliss, that is you, you know, and you are brilliant, you are unique. And within that uniqueness, you know, finding those spaces and those communities and those peoples that can hold you in your uniqueness without trying to shift or change or theoreticize or what have you, is magic. And you know, and that's what I felt with you, was that space to be unique in myself, that space to also, the feeling, I keep saying feeling held, and I almost want to try and verbalize how much more of an impact it is, and how I belong somewhere. But it's like, I don't belong somewhere that I have to shift and change myself. I don't have to belong somewhere and have the same experience as someone else. Like, I just belong because of who I am, you know, and also what's happened, but like, it's who I am, who I'm becoming. And it's just so amazing. And for anyone, yes, like, being a human, you know, is a mix of all experiences. Going through trauma and healing is a mix of so many things. And, you know, existing is, I'm going to be mindful of my words here, but it's special. And I don't want to say that to, you know, take away from someone's pain or make it feel special. That's so not what I'm trying to say here. But the existence of self, being yourself and honoring who you are with everything that you've experienced and feel and are working through is magic and human and beautiful and powerful. And, you know, just be you as you are. And, you know, we're here, Keda's here, True2Soul is here, all the organizations, how other people that are speaking about it, like, there's just so much here, and the expansiveness of that is so beautiful. And there's a tendency within myself, within this work, you know, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I would say this is the year where I'm really truly expanding into helping others in a way that feels so different and substantial for me. And it sometimes makes me feel like, everyone knows this. And then I also have reminders that it's still, not small, but the voice is still growing, is what I want to say. And how important, you know, you are, and I am, and anyone else is. And I also enjoy what you said about, you know, just because one person speaks about it, you know, you and I are speaking, and like, we know how to put our feet down and be like, hear me, you know, that's so awesome. And also anyone who just chooses to hold themselves the whole time and journal, that is so powerful, that is so revolutionary. And just to honor that, and oh, you're so loved, you know, so loved in where you are right now and who you are right now. And so I just, you know, wanted to share that feeling that I received with you, with anyone that's listening, no matter what you've experienced or not experienced or what have you, like, you belong, and you are unique and impressive, and like, you are a human, and humans go through a lot. So like, congratulations, you know.
True. Oh gosh, so wonderfully said. So wonderfully said. Yes.
Pardon me.
Oh,
So I I could talk with you for, I don't know, days, hours, probably
ditto.
lifetimes, like truly lifetimes.
Uh,
And I think for this podcast episode, I would love to sort of start creating a circular moment here. And within what we've been speaking about, is there anything that you feel you're called to bring up? And also, second part, if there's one thing that you would love to leave the listeners with, what would that be?
Yeah. So what I'm called to do, my work is it's like truth whispering, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And truth is so expansive. Like
Mm.
we fight over it often as human beings. We say, no, this is the truth and I'm right. And, you're, and sometimes our validity has to stand on the shoulders of someone else being wrong for some reason, as opposed
Mm.
to just being true by just being who we are. And so, though this work is mired a lot in the word trauma, the reality it's really about truth and healing and love. It's about um, the permission to exist as we are shifting and flowing and ebbing, and being willing to do that out loud. So my work is to show that pain is a part of that picture for us,
Mhm.
and that if we can have equanimity, which is a type of neutrality or objectivity, understanding that change is as consistent and constant as death. Like that's the only thing that's consistent. Everything else,
Mm.
like
Mhm.
everything else shifts and
Mm.
becomes something else. And if we could just stand in witness mode with it sometimes,
Mm.
that's where we can find our solace, our peace, our stillness, away from the pain. Some, just to
Mm.
be able to look at it for a minute and understand that we are not that. We are not the pain. We're not even the joy. We're not all these different things. We allow expression of those things, of those emotions, of those responses to life circumstances.
Mm.
And we're all of those things at once, which means that we're quite powerful and quite expansive.
Mhm.
And so when we attach ourselves to a reaction
Mm.
to a traumatic or a series of traumatic events, we're just allowing just a mere portion of our capacity to exist on this planet.
Oof.
And so I feel my purpose is to come to that realization out loud through my own experiences, um, and then invite people to a safe space to share and come to that realization as well, and for us to do it together. And so, with all that being said, my message to everyone is just be true to you.
Mm.
That's what helped me survive childhood. That's what gets me through my days, the really, 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 really hard ones, and even the most amazing, blissful ones. Is truth is where stillness is. That's home.
Wow, like my eyes are watering right now. I thank you isn't even, I can't, that doesn't even do justice to what I'm feeling right now, or how grateful. Like, how do you even exist? Like, this is really what I'm feeling, is like, where the heck did this woman come from? 'Cause she's like amazing, and wow, like I can't even, it is just so amazing to speak with you and connect with you in a way that, as I'm learning, of course, in a beautiful way, is so aligned and um shakes the earth in a way, that is truthful, that that just like shake, like, I don't know,
Mm,
like a reminder of like your truth or who you are. It really feels that powerful. So thank you for literally standing in who you are and revolutionizing and speaking and creating and holding space for, and all of these things. Like, I'm just so in awe of you, Keda. And I'm so thankful that we've connected, and I cannot wait to continue threading through all of these aspects of healing and life and speaking and what have you, to just continue to permeate the world with joy, truth, expansion, pain holding pain, you know. And so, wow.